How are we doing out there, Lo-Fi listeners? Where you at? It's summertime, and Lofi Poli Sci is teaming up with HipsvilleAD's Gregory Day to bring you our summer music series of The Trade-Off, trying to give you all out there some new tunes to jam to this summer. Gregory Day, my friend, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing excellent, man. How are you?
I'm doing good, doing good. It's hot, it's icky, sticky, but I'm still loving the summertime. Why don't you break down for the good people at home what we got going down?
Yeah, this is the trade-off. So we're doing a musical genre trade-off where we pick one musical genre, and then we kind of pick two pieces of music that represent our point of view of that genre. So they could be vastly different. They could be very similar, and then we share them, and then we give our point of, or our opinion about them. So this week we're talking Indian music, which I know is a very wide umbrella of to put out there. All types of music from India, and so we chose two pieces of music. I think you and I maybe are not the most educated individuals on Indian music, but I guess we could jump in to see where our taste lies and where we chose and what we chose.
For sure, for sure. And at the end, because this was your pick, so
Yeah.
it's the history that we do my first, and then we do yours last, and then
Mhm.
after, if I forget, remind me. I want to ask you why you chose this exact genre. All right.
Hell yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right. So
So
go ahead, take us away with your take on my pick.
yeah, so you gave me this song called Bagishri. I'm thinking that's how it's
Bogtree.
pronounced. Bogshri. All right. Bogshri by a band called Mole. This is a super chill yet really funky live instrumental piece of music. It's super catchy at first with this really great synthesizer opener, and it's got some really funky drumming. But the first thing you notice with this track is it's got tons of layered instrumentation on it. And like I said, it's an instrumental track, so it's got these great almost like motoric style beats, which is just a beat that's going to like lull you into some sort of almost like a hypnotic style or a hypnotic trance almost, where it's just constantly repeating itself. And you're going with the rhythm of it. It's got this great background vocals, and it's got this like almost traditional guitar played over it, and this like I said, the synthesizer, which is really cool. But then it's got this really great violin piece that closes out the piece of music. This just comes in as this big swelling violin that really peaks the track. Yeah, I really dug this track. It's really good. It's a really great live piece. Kind of like shows off this really great big band. This is a band I've never heard of called Mole. I say big band because there's just a lot of people in the band, not like the style of music big band. But yeah, it reminded me a lot of like almost, even though it doesn't sound like it, reminded me a lot of like electronic music today, like LCD Sound System, bands like that, where they layer just a ton of different instrumentations on top of each other, and they come together really well. Or like the German bands from the '70s, like Can, which do the same kind of thing. But this is a little more traditional, but this is one thing I did want to ask you to clarify for me. Um, is that this band is not Indian at all, and it's actually Mole is Pakistani, and yeah. So I guess can you talk a little bit about that? But they're really great bands. I don't want to say anything knock them for not being from India, but
Sure, sure, sure. Yeah. Call it my little cheat, my friend. Sure. Yeah, no, no,
yeah.
for sure. Whenever I sent you this one, I was like, I don't want to talk about it. Don't tell me about it. Don't message me about it. And of course you messaged me and I was like, don't stop. I was like, I knew you were gonna have something to say, but just hear me out. All right. We'll get to that
Mhm.
in a minute. All right.
All
Yes,
right.
we know the genre pick is Indian music, and I chose a band from Pakistan. But all right, so let me just start by telling you a little bit about like why I picked this and why
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love
Okay.
this song and this group and this style of music. So I love the mix of the old and the new here, like the traditional and the modern. Like you said, you do have like the synthesizers, but it's like an amazing blend of like older traditional Hindustani kind of style of music. And you said there were so many people who were a part of this group, and we use the word like instrumental, but there's also a lot of vocals. There's female vocals in
Mhm.
here, there's male vocals in here, and they just all kind of like come together in this truly unique kind of blend of this group Mole from Pakistan. And from what I could find out, they're no longer together. But this YouTube video was from 2011. So I mean, this is
Mm.
10, 11 years ago, but
Mhm.
I loved it. And so there's so many people taking part in this. And I feel like even though you don't necessarily have lyrics in it, but the vocals in it, I still feel like are singing. And it's like giving you words without giving you words. And to me, like, I don't know how you have backup singers and a lot of music today that just kind of add, another layer of music to the main verse and the forefront. I feel like you have backup singers here who are like just supporting the instruments and the story and the emotion and the feeling that the instruments are playing. Like to me, the instruments here are the lead vocals, and the
Mhm.
vocals are the supporting instruments. And I love that. And I think for anyone who listens to this track, you will definitely hear some familiar sounds of, from the Indian subcontinent or from Pakistan or India and Bangladesh. And you're going to be like, hey, I know this kind of music. And then yet at the same time, you're going to hear these synthesizers and it's just going to be like, whoa, what is going on here? And like you said, so this is Mo from Pakistan, and the song is called Bagshri, and it's produced by Coke Studios, Pakistan. And I say all that for all of you out there, like, check out this group and this piece. You will be happy you did. Um,
Yeah, yeah, it's really good. And I do say, like, I do listen to a lot of world music, and I do really love the incorporation of synthesizers and funk instrumentation in this kinds of music, like, or even like, well, in Indian music as well. But like Turkish music has a lot of psychedelic and weird synthesizer stuff. And a lot of these bands have been incorporated for like maybe the last 50, 60 years. They think really well with their traditional music.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Yeah, I think most certainly you started hearing more synthesizers and more kind of world music all over the place. All right, so why I chose this or how I went about choosing this is because a person I know introduced me to this song a few months back, and I was like, I think this can work, but I really wanted to find out a little bit more about it, and I wasn't about to Google anything about it because I wanted to know from the person who introduced it to me. And so that individual, they said that this is really like a blending of what you would call like a classical Hindustani Bagshri. I keep mispronouncing that word. It's a hard word for me to get, but it's a blending of traditional Hindustani with, like we said, Western kind of pop style into it. And we keep saying synthesizers because it's so prominent. And to me, it's like so unique and it sets off the traditional pieces about it. But as far as like the classical Hindustani music that this has its roots in, which you could most certainly hear, like, especially towards the middle of the song, like
Hmm.
you get that very traditional vibe in it. But when I asked them, I was like, well, like, what does Hindustani mean to you? What is Hindustani music? Because like Hindu, you'd say, okay, Hindi, that's like Indian, most certainly so. But like the Stani, like I think like Pakistani. So like
Hmm.
Hindustani, I think looking at that word, I think it's like a blending. But
Hmm.
they were telling me that like if you Google this and you would like just look it up in general, like a lot of it will just say that Hindustani is Indian music, or they'll just reference maybe the subcontinent of India. But the reality of it is, the subcontinent of India, it's a massive place, and it's not just India. It's Pakistan, it's Bangladesh, it's India, it's a lot of places, it's a lot of people. And although like there's way more than a billion people there, and there's a lot of differences between the peoples there, but there's also a lot of similarities culturally, linguistically, and musically. And Hindustani, from what they were telling me and how I feel it from this piece, is most certainly a blending of all that. So because of that, I say it's not a cheat, even though the band is from Pakistan, because it's in like the Hindustani mixture of music. So that's my reasoning for why it's not a cheat and why I included it.
Oh, fair enough. Fair enough. I can dig it.
Yes, yes, yes. All right. And what about your pick now? I'm interested to talk about this one too. What do you got for us?
Yeah, it's this track called Mehbooba Mehbooba from the film Sholay. I went with a very classic piece of music from a Bollywood movie. This is a piece by the famed composer, Bollywood composer R. D. Burman. Um, and I'll tell you. I can get into a little bit more here in a moment, but I want to hear your reaction to it before I get into the specifics of this track.
Sure, sure. And you most certainly answered my first question. Was this a music video or was this a part of the movie? Was it part of the movie or was it a music video?
No, it's part of the movie. Yeah, this is a film from the 70s. This
Okay,
is a film called Cholet, and I'll get more into that in a little bit. But
right, right.
I made sure to send you the not only the audio, but I wanted to send you the clip from the movie as well.
Right, right. So whenever I started watching it, I was like, I felt like this is from a movie. So like I like minimized it. And I restarted it because I wanted to get like I didn't want the film to influence my listening experience first. And then after I watched it with the clip from the film. But looking at this, I definitely got the classic Bollywood feel from it and the music and the upbeatness. And I don't think I've ever heard this song before. I've most certainly though heard a lot of music in this style. And I totally dig it, you know. Now granted, I have no idea what the lyrics mean, right? So there are a lot of lyrics in here.
Mhm.
But I do like the tone of the words mixed with the music, which is one thing I really look for when I'm listening to international music in a language that I don't understand. I'm not looking to Google the words and get an English translation, but I am looking for the lyrics to flow with the music. And I think that did a really good job in this song. In the music itself, the mixture of the instruments and variations of the tempos and the beats. And it's just really a chill vibe all the way, but then it really picks up towards the end of the song and then it just boom drops off and it's like wow. I was like, a lot of music really it picks up the tempo to go out on, but then it kind of like dies out a little bit, and it just smooths out, and this one it went out on a bang. And I thought that was pretty cool because you finish listening to the song and your heart is still pumping, you're still grooving, and you're like, you know what, man, I could listen to some more of this stuff. Let me find the next track on here. What's a suggested listening next for this? I really dug it. I did. But why don't you tell us a little bit more about it?
Yeah. So this is from the film Cholet, which is to me the best way to describe it is a Bollywood spaghetti western. It's kind of like if you took the good, bad, and the ugly and you made it in India. It's a big action movie about these guys who are protecting this town, and this particular piece of music, which I think is the most famous piece of music from the movie, um, is from a scene set in the bandit camp, the bandit camp. And basically, the clip is this performer who's singing while this woman is dancing, and you have these bandits that are just leering at this woman who's performing the dance while this guy is performing. I forget if there's a backing band, but basically these people feel like hostages in this scene who are performing this music, and so there's this fear that's kind of incorporated in this track. Where I mean, the track is translates to English as "Darling, Darling," and it's kind of about a guy singing to a woman. It's a very basic kind of love song, but given the context of the number in the film, there's this fear because they're being held hostage by these bandits, and there's also this layering quality, or the danger that's coming from the bandits leering at this woman dancing, and at any moment you feel like violence could erupt. And so there's this sadness in the song as well, kind of creeps in from the tone of the piece about the fact that they are hostages and they could, there is danger at any moment, in the middle of this love song. But yeah, R.D. Berman is like one of the most famous composers of this period. He did a ton of stuff in I think the 60s to the 80s and even further on. He died in the 90s, but he's really famous for not only doing all these traditional scores, but he mixed a lot of funk elements and electronic elements with synthesizers and kind of really updated Bollywood uh, music to fit a more worldwide interest in like disco and funk and stuff that was kind of taking over in popular culture. And yeah, so you have this this is like considered like one of the greatest or biggest productions of its time, and so it's just like a great piece of music that really kind of like illustrates India in the 70s, and or not India in the 70s but Bollywood in the 70s.
I find it so intriguing that you said, the influence of disco, because I can't stand disco with a passion, and I always, I guess, I kind of downplay its influence to actually think that disco did influence anything anywhere,
Hmm.
because here in the States, disco was such a short-lived period, right? Like you had the
Hmm.
Beatles and the Woodstock and rock and roll era hit, and then um, the Bee Gees and people came in pretty quickly, but then the 80s took over, and you get things like Guns N' Roses, you get Black Sabbath, you get Michael Jackson, you get hip hop, like, and it just seems like the evolution of music in the US, at least from like the 60s to the 80s, disco was just a itty bitty little bleep there. So I always overlook it. So did disco really have an influence out there?
Yeah, I think if you look at the evolution of music, I mean, disco is definitely a very small window in the history of music. But think about club culture and like
That's a
there's
good
a
point.
lot of like dancing, dance hall culture, and you have these different phases. But I mean, to me, disco's always been like the white version of funk music, but it was radio friendly. But then there was a lot of like, I think that's where you get your Giorgio Moroder and people like that who are taking those funk influences and um, these dance tracks, these pop dance tracks of disco, and kind of expanding them into house music. Basically that's where the evolution is going. And kind of stretching out those 12-inch records and stuff. So I think there's just like this tiny little window that this genre was around, but like what came out of it, the experimentation that came out of it, and like the cultures that came out of it, um, that definitely shifted very quickly into the 80s. But I think it did have, wildly enough, it did have like a huge impact, especially like if you look at like European dance music of this period, like even going to the 80s, like a lot of Italian music is still using disco references, and a lot of Eastern European music is using disco references. So yeah, I think this it kind of died off really quickly here in the States, but I think there is a long lasting influence from the genre.
And that's amazing that you see it have an influence here in music in Bollywood. And I love, by the way, that you brought in movies to it too, even though we're doing like music here. So we both like kind
Yeah.
of fudged our answers for today, but I dig it because I think music is most certainly like a paramount part of movies, right? Like
Hmm.
you almost can't have a film without music, although you do have some examples of it, sure. But whether it's a soundtrack or you're scoring it with instrumental pieces, almost all film has music to it.
Yeah, even silent movies.
Right, right. So I think, in a lot of ways, it's a cool thing to bring in film and music and how sometimes, they're side by side with each other. But why did you pick this genre in particular? So we both do love international music. You could have went anywhere in the world. What drew
Hmm.
you to Indian music?
I just love Indian music. I love the vibe of it. I love the instrumentation, and I think it also really comes out of my frustration not being able to talk about too many Indian films when we talk about the top 10 list. I know there are a lot of references. There are a lot of like areas that we could incorporate Indian film more, but I don't feel like they're as accessible as they could be to us. And so yeah, it's like I'm really into Bollywood films, and I'm really into the music from India. And when we got around to making this series, I was like, well, shit, I'm gonna do Indian music because I just love it. It doesn't sound like for a culture, it doesn't sound like anything else on the planet. Obviously, there are shared things with their neighboring uh, countries in the region, but like it's just so specific to that area and to the people that live there that had to do it for this series.
No, I dig it. Any reason is a good reason to include something new on the show for sure. I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. All right. Well, then, what is our genre for next time? We are doing, and I think quite a few of you out there may not even know what this is, but the genre is trip hop. That's right. Gregory Day, do you know what trip hop is?
Fuck yes, I do.
Good man, good man. Don't tell anyone. If you are unsure about what trip hop is, it's a thing, and we will get to it for sure. And I will send you my pick later in the week for that. In fact, I'm not even
Yeah.
sure I know what my pick is yet. I have a few up there, but
All
I'm
right.
interested to talk about this one for sure. And
Oh
on the
yeah.
real, anytime any of you out there, we pick a genre, we pick a song, and you think about something, send in your pick. We'll talk about it on air. And Gregory Day, before we go, I just want to talk to you real quick for a second. So, we just had episode 500 of Lofi Poli Sci, and during the making of that, I also realized we just made 1 year of doing your top 10 movie list, man. And I
Oh,
wanted to say thank you so much for that. It has been a true pleasure having you on the show for over a year now. So thank you for always being here. I appreciate it, man.
yeah. Thank you for having me on the show, man. I love doing this.
Yeah, it adds something different, for all of us to do. And I think, as nitty gritty as we do sometimes get with the show itself, because we're talking about international news and the news is sometimes tragic, that's just the way that it is.
Hmm.
I always do like the idea of bringing you in and having you just take our mind away from the bullshit of the world, even if it's just for an hour to talk about movies. I love
Yeah,
it. And I know a lot of other people out there love it. So thank you so much for giving us a break and giving us an intro into another medium. And we love it. Thank you so much.
yeah. No, thank you.
And Gregory Day, till the next trade off, turn it up, my friend, and play it loud.
Oh, hell yeah.